Yes, good morning, all the participants. I'm glad to be here for this session. Can you hear me? I am
Ma'am, the audio seems a bit low.
okay.
Uh,
Just a minute
you
then.
could go to that more button and
Okay, I'll try with this. Hello, am I
yes, ma'am.
better audible now? Still it is low, the volume?
Ah, ma'am, the audio seems low.
No, just a minute. Is it better now?
Ma'am, am I audible properly? Means आपको
Yes.
मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
You are audible perfectly. I am still not audible to you?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. The volume is a bit low.
Okay.
Ma'am, on the beside the mute button, you will see an arrow.
Right.
On that arrow, if you click, you will see settings.
Okay.
उसमें आप माइक्रोफोन वॉल्यूम एडजस्ट कर सकते हो.
Yes. Is it better now? My volume is showing full.
Okay. नहीं, output volume नहीं. You will have to look for input volume, microphone, the one below.
Okay, let me see.
Make it उसको maximum कर दीजिए.
Okay.
The settings में speaker and microphone में you will see that input volume or microphone. Beside the mute button,
Wait,
you will see an arrow. On that, you will see a settings button, settings link.
problem is I cannot see the mute button also here.
नहीं, at the bottom of the screen with stop video and mute.
Yes, yes, now it's visible.
On beside that you will see a small arrow. On that arrow you will see a settings link.
There's more. I can see pause, share, assign, mute, stop video, participants, annotate, chat, and more. That is all I can see from here.
Not on the more button, madam. Mute button. Beside the mute button where which you use to switch off your audio.
Yes.
Beside it you will see a small arrow. On the button itself you will see a small arrow.
Oh, there's no button on this side.
Uh, you could be. Are you using an app Mac system? Different on Mac system. Now you are absolutely inaudible.
No, it's not a Mac system, it's an HP.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
now it's better at least. The
it's
sound is better.
better. So should I proceed?
Please, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, so good morning, everybody. After a small glitch, this technical glitch, we should move ahead with the session. And Mr. Reggie, can you? Yes, thank you. So, yes, uh, today, as you all know, we are here to discuss the nuances of the RTI Act. How does it affect us? And what is its importance currently in the society, in your life, in everybody's life? It is very important that you should have a thought about it, why we are here to discuss the RTI Act together. Because since this act was laid in 2005, it has spread its root widely and deeply throughout our country, and it has impacted each and every individual in some or the other way. How? Because this act affects all of us in three major ways, as I would like to put forward. The first is, since we are all citizens of India, we can file an RTI application if we want any information with any of the government authority. Secondly, since you are all government officers, you can be sitting on the other side of the table where the applications will be coming to you and you're required to answer those applications. So again, it becomes important to understand the RTI Act so that you can fulfill your duties assigned to you by the Indian government. And thirdly, very importantly, and mostly it is known to very few people, that this act affects all of us as a third party. How? The question is, so since we are all citizens of India, we share a lot of information about us with various government departments. For example, when we are filing income tax returns, we give a set of information regarding us to the income tax office. When we apply for the passport, again, we are giving certain information. When we go to a certain government hospital, again, we are expected to give in a certain information. So in this various ways, whenever we are approaching any government office for any of the work, a particular piece of information we are always handing over to the government offices. Now, this information that we have submitted to the any government authority is liable to be disclosed under RTI Act. So if a third person, any other person files an RTI application with that public authority and wants your information disclosed, then you should have the power to defend your information. And how you can have this power? By knowing the act inside out. So that if need be, you can defend your information from not being disclosed. Since you are all government officers here, so today I'll lay emphasis mostly on understanding the basic principles of the Act and specifically how to deal with the applications that may be coming to you. So first I'll take up the founding pillars of the Act, which I call as the basic principles of the Act, on which the whole Act is built upon. So this act, this is a very, a public welfare act. So this act lays emphasis on maximum disclosure so that to bring about transparency in governance. This act has not laid down the particular piece of information which should be disclosed. Rather, this act says that everything, whatever any government office is having, should be disclosed barring a few sets of information. So this act has specified the information which is barred from disclosure and not what is to be disclosed. So this lays emphasis on maximum disclosure. Whatever the public office has should be disclosed to the public. Why? Because we all know we are a democratic government. So everything is by the people, for the people and of the people. So the basic underlying principle is that there should not be any curtain between the people and the government offices which are functioning for the people. Second is, this is very important, the Act says that each and every public authority should proactively disclose the information that they have with them. Meaning to say that they have not to wait for any RTI application coming to them. No. This Act does not say कि जब application आएगी then you respond to it. No. The section 4 of the Act has specified certain manuals, 17 manuals precisely, which are to be disclosed proactively, that is suo motu, on their own by the public offices in the public domain. And these 17 manuals, they cover a plethora of information. I mean, if you'll go through them one by one, you will see that almost all the information that the public officer is holding has to be disclosed proactively. And if this part of the Act is followed, I can assure you that all the RTI applications which are coming to you would be reduced to a considerable amount. Now, this Act is similar to the Dowry Act, where we say in all the other crimes, it is the public prosecutor who has to prove that the public prosecutor has to prove that the victim has committed no crime. But in the Dowry Act, it is the the culprit who has to prove that he has not committed any crime. This act is similar to that act because here it is the PIO who is responsible to justify his action, whether he has disclosed the information, and specifically if he has denied the information, the complete onus is on the PIO. he has to justify as to how and why the information has been denied. The Act says that public should not be required to put lots of effort or lots of cost for obtaining any information. And yes, it is quite visible. Only 10 rupee fee is to be applied for accessing any information, and a simple application, even that may be written on a simple piece of paper using a pen or a typed. So it is very easy. The Act says minimal effort and reasonable cost should be required to access any information. As I told you that this act specifies a certain set of information which need not be disclosed. But it also says that if revealing that barred information is in public interest, then the section 8, which is the section which is required to deny the information, is no longer applicable. So here, this act, since it is a public welfare act, it considers public interest supreme. Now, there can be certain situations when the RTI Act, the provisions of the RTI Act say, yes, this piece of information should be disclosed. But there can be, certain different acts like the Official Secret Act or the Income Tax Act or the Customs Act or any other act which says, no, this piece of information should not be disclosed to the public. So whenever such a situation arises, when there is a conflict between the RTI Act and any other act under Indian Constitution, then RTI Act prevails upon all the other laws. So as far as whether the information need to be disclosed or not is governed only and only by the provisions of the RTI Act and no other law. So this is just to summarize the basic principles which have been the founding stones of this act. Now, whenever we talk of RTI application, RTI Act, the first thing that comes to mind is filing the RTI application, getting the information, or from the other side, application coming in and you're responding to the application. But this is not what the RTI Act is only about. It is much beyond that. Besides filing a simple RTI application, the applicant can also ask for inspection of work or documents or records. While he is inspecting any work, he can sit down and take notes of it. He can demand for a certified copies of it. He can also ask for certain samples. For example, if somebody wants to have a sample of police uniform, or if any government construction work is going on of a government building, the applicant can ask for sample of the material being used for construction. And similarly, any information held in electronic format in on any of the government offices, he can ask for that information also. Now the question is, who can ask all these things? Yes, we all know citizens of India can ask. Can a foreigner put in an RTI application? No. Person of Indian origin? No. See what happens? India does not recognize this dual citizenship. So as soon as a person acquires a citizenship of some other country, he ceases to become a citizen of India. And thus, if he is a citizen of some other country, he cannot put in an RTI application. A legal person, that is association or company. No, association or company very categorically, though they are legal person, but they are not citizen of India. So in the name of association or company, nobody can ask. Yes, if somebody writes in an application, Mr. XYZ, president of XYZ company, it is a valid RTI application as long as a person has written his name and has signed the application. It is immaterial whether he is giving his post or authority in which he is filing the RTI application. But if the RTI application comes in only by the president of XYZ association, then it is not a valid RTI application because company or association is not a citizen. Public servants, yes, since all the public servants are the citizens as well, so they can file RTI application. Can two or more people together file an RTI application? Or I would say maybe 50 people or 100 people or 1000 people, can they together file a single RTI application? Yes, they can. There is no limit to as the number of applicants which can file a single RTI application. But now the question is, ki if 1,000 people have signed the application and they want the information, is the PIO expected to send information to 1,000 people? No. The PIO, for every RTI application, the PIO is expected to send only one set of information to the address that has been specified in the application. I hope I'm clear with this point. If there's any query, you may note it down, and that I will take after the completion of this session. So can a minor file an application? Like, I mean, you can say maybe a 10-year-old or a 11-year-old or a 16-year-old. Yes, because as soon as a child is born, he or she becomes a citizen of India. And the only requirement for RTI filing an RTI application is that the person should be a citizen of India. So yes, minors can file a valid RTI application. Is proof of citizenship required? Generally, proof of citizenship is not required. And the PIO also should not ask for proof of citizenship unless and until he has a serious doubt about the citizenship of the applicant. Normally, a PIO should not ask. But if the PIO considers the person that there is a serious doubt that he is not the citizen of India, then he may ask for the proof of citizenship. Who should file an RTI application? Anybody, any citizen of India who wants any information from any of the public authorities can file an RTI application. So this is, moving ahead. Since we now all know what are the powers which are vested under the RTI Act, who can access these powers. Now I'll talk about the role of the public authorities, that is the PIO specifically. What happens when any RTI application comes to any government office? The application can come through two ways. To either the applicant can file the application directly to the PIO, or he can also give the application to the APIO, that is the Assistant Public Information Officer. Every public authority has to appoint a PIO, and in some cases they also appoint a APIO. This is in the cases like where you have small branches in very rural areas. So there a APIO can be appointed, and the role of APIO is only to take the application from the applicant and give it to the PIO. Now this taking of application and giving to the PIO, the APIO has to do this within the 5 days of receiving the application. So the role of APIO ends as soon as the application reaches the PIO. Now the role of PIO emerges, and he has to deal with each and every application. He has to decide whether the information is to be disclosed or not, and how. So first and foremost, there are three things which the PIO should pay attention to immediately as soon as he receives the application. First, he should ensure whether the application money has been paid. That is, if there is no application money, then it is no longer a valid RTI application. If such a scene happens that there is only an application but there is no application fee, I always suggest don't just put it or file the application. Please write to the PIO, write to the applicant, inform him that your application does not have an application money. If the application money comes, then treat that application as a valid RTI application. Still, the applicant fails to pay the fees, then you can treat it as a normal application and there is no need to respond to it within the terms of the RTI Act. So first is application money. Second is the PIO should know whatever is being sought under the application is information or not. And third is he has to examine whether the information that is being sought pertains to his organization or to the other organization. So I'll just take up all these three things one by one in detail now. So as far as the fee is concerned, there is two kinds of fees that has been prescribed under the Act. One is the application fee, that is rupees 10. And second is the further fee, which is the actual cost of providing the information. For example, if there is the information that is being sought is up to 5 pages, then 5 into 2, that is 2 rupees for each page, becomes 10 rupees again. So the applicant is then supposed to pay the 10 rupees, that is the further fee. and then the information has to be given to the applicant. Similarly, the costs have been prescribed for different types where the information can be given. Like if it is a sample or a model, then the actual cost. अगर किसी ने police uniform मांगी, तो whatever the what is the cost of the uniform, the same has to be charged. If a person asks for inspection, then the first hour of inspection is to be done free of cost, and thereafter ₹5 for each hour. If a person asks for a CD, then ₹50 for each CD. The fee has to be paid only in the forms prescribed under the Act. That is either cash. Whenever an applicant is paying in cash, please give him a proper receipt. Or he may pay by a demand draft or by a postal order. The most common mode used by the people is postal order, but I would like to specify that checks are not allowed. Only bankers' checks are allowed. That is the postal order. And if this is demand draft and postal order, they have to be in the favor of the accounts officer of the public authority, not in the favor of the PIO. Then if a applicant belongs to a below poverty line category, then no fee has to be charged. I mean, no 10 rupee, that is the application fee, and no further fee. That is the charge of actual providing of the information. No fee can be charged. The second and very important thing is the PIO should assess whether what is being sought is information or not. So the term information has been defined under section 2F of the Act, and it says any material in any form. So this is a very sweet and short definition given in the Act, but it includes a lot of things ranging right from records, memos, press releases, circulars, any paper, I would say, held in black and white in any of the government offices is information under the RTI Act. Then going a step further, all the samples and models which any public authority is holding becomes information. Any information which is held in electronic format. Nowadays, everything is going digital, e-offices and everything. So yes, if you have any information either in a pen drive or the hard disk of the laptop or the computer, or any CD or on email, everything which is there in electronic format is information under the RTI Act. Now, these are the things which any public office normally holds in their office. But there can be certain other information which ordinarily a public authority does not have. But if they want, they can access this under some other act. I'll give you an example. If whenever we are paying income tax returns, we are giving a particular set of information to the income tax department. Now, if the income tax department, they want to file a case against a particular individual, so of disproportionate assets. So in that case, they can ask that person to submit few other documents or certain other informations with regard to that case. So when this information, which the income tax office does not hold in normal course, but since now they have accessed it from the person, becomes information under the RTI Act. So just to conclude, what is information? Anything which is held in black and white in any of the government office is information. Opinions and advices, as long as opinions and advices are just verbal, like in form of a discussion between the officers, it is not information. But as soon as these opinions or advices, they are reduced in writing on a file, on a piece of paper, they become information under the RTI Act. The role of PIO is not to confirm or deny a perception of appealant. No, he is there only to provide what is available on record. He cannot confirm or deny something which is not on record. Similarly, the PIO is not expected to create information for the applicant. No, he is only supposed to give what is readily available in the office. Then the PIO can inform about the decisions taken by the public authority. If the decision has not been taken, the PIO cannot communicate the same. जो चीज हुई ही नहीं है, जिसका record ही नहीं है, the PIO is not expected to provide any such details. Similarly, if the decision has been made and the reasons for which the decision has been based is not there reduced in writing, the PIO is not supposed to explain how and why a particular decision was taken. Only if there are reasons recorded in writing, then he can provide it. I had talked about lots of things which are information under the Act, but these are certain things which are not information, ordinarily not information under the Act. As I have talked about opinions and advices. If they are not recorded, they are not information. Then many a times what happens, as I have given you an example, if a decision is taken, they can, many times application comes in seeking clarifications or reasons or explanations why such and such decision was taken or why such and such decision was not taken. The PIO is not expected to give answers to such queries. No. Then many times application comes in, asking, you have that policy, you have that X and Y Z rule. So does that rule means this? No, the PIO is not there to give his interpretation of the law, his opinion of the law, or give his consultancy to the applicant. No, the PIO's role is not that. The PIO's role is only to provide what is readily available in the public office. Then there can be certain times when what information is being sought is already in the public domain. By already in public domain, I mean, since as I have explained that pro-disclosure part, that the public authorities are expected to give certain information about that on the they have to put it, disclose it on their own without waiting in for application. So there can be many times when the information is already available, or maybe on the website of the public authority, or in the form of pamphlets, or in the form of other publications. So whenever there is such scene where the information being sought is already in the public domain, then the PIO can just, if it is on the website, the PIO can simply provide a link to that particular piece of information. It is not required to take out the copy and give it to the applicant. But here I would like to specify, they can, maybe the applicant says, I am not digitally literate, I have no internet, I have no computer, I cannot access this digitally. If such a scene arises, then take out the copy of the same page and provide it. Then there can be, sometimes the applicant can file in an application seeking, for example, give me all the, documents related to vigilance of Mr. X, this inquiry of Mr. X, or maybe related to my pension or something like that. So whenever there is such vague queries, non-specific queries, the PIO can ask the applicant to specify what exactly does he require, and then he can go ahead with responding to the application. Sometimes there can be scenes where there is a particular case and it has gone to the court. So now the public office is expected to submit all the original documents to the court, since the case is sub judice. If then an application comes in seeking any information regarding those documents, the PIO can say that information is not held by his organization. So in such case, he should transfer the application to the court or to any other authority, to whoever is holding the original documents, because they become the holder of the information and only they are entitled to disclose the information or not to disclose the information, whatever decision they take. The PIO of this organization have no authority once the original papers have been transferred to the other public authorities. Then this is not a redressal grievance forum. Many times people want to redress the grievance कि मुझे pension नहीं मिल रही है, so what should I do? No. Nobody can redress. They can seek information regarding to their papers pertaining to the pension, but they cannot ask for payment of pension under the RTI Act. So these are the common things which many a times the people ask for under RTI application. And if the PIO knows that this is what is being sought is not information, he can simply write in 2 lines, what you are seeking is not information as defined under section 2 of the Act, and his job ends there. I'll take up a few cases so that you can understand this concept in a better manner. If you can just go through the case. So here the applicant, he asked the Information Commission that if any RTI case is in process, then the papers relating to that case can be weeded out or not. So the PIO of the Information Commission, he said this is not information under Section 2F, because what you are asking is the opinion of the PIO. It is not something which is information, it is the opinion. And since any such opinion or advice is not on record, this is not information. Here an applicant, he filed an application and asked for recovery of a certain amount. So this, I will say, this is again, somebody is trying to address the grievance, and this is not a grievance redressal forum. So yes, the PIO was correct in responding that what you are seeking is not information as per Section 2F of the RTI Act. So once the PIO has ensured that whether the application fee has been there or not, and whether what is being sought is information or not, the next step is to dealing with the application. Now, the PIO has to assess that whatever is being sought, that information, whether it relates to his organization or to some other organization. If it relates to his own organization, then he has to transfer the application to his colleague. Like, there is ordinarily a one PIO in every public authority, and one person in any organization cannot be expected to know each and everything in the organization. So what happens when the application comes in? For example, if the information being sought is relating to accounts department, so what he will do, he will transfer the application to the accounts department. So the person in the accounts department, maybe the head of the accounts department or somebody else, he then becomes the deemed PIO. The deemed PIO has to share all the responsibilities of the PIO under the RTI Act, and he is the one who has to collect all the information, pass it on to the PIO, and the PIO will in turn give the response to the application to the applicant. So it is the PIO who has to sign the response, who has to provide the information to the applicant actually, but the collection and collating and everything has to be done by the deemed PIO. And deemed PIO should always adhere to the time limits, whatever has been prescribed for PIO under the Act. So in this case, whenever a PIO is transferring the application to some other person within his own organization, he has to transfer it under Section 5(4). Now, if the PIO goes through the application and finds that the information what is being sought does not pertain to his organization but to some other organization. For example, if somebody wants to ask about the bad conditions of the road and they have filed the application with the Waterworks Department, then the other organization, the PIO will have to transfer the application to the other organization. This transfer of application is done under Section 6(3) of the Act. So once a PIO is transferring any application under Section 6(3), that is, if when he is transferring the application to a different public authority, then the PIO has to intimate the applicant that your application has been transferred to X and YZ department, and you will get the response from that other department. And the role of the PIO then here ends, and the role of the PIO in the other organization then starts. So, but it is important that if you are transferring the application to some other public authority, you have to intimate the applicant that your application has been transferred, and you will get the response from the other organization. So I have talked about Section 5(4) and Section 6(3) of the Act, under which the PIO has to transfer the application. When the application is transferred under Section 5(4), that is within the same organization, the deemed PIO then collects and gives the information to the PIO. The PIO has to assess whether the information has to be disclosed or not, point number one. Point number two, whether it can be disclosed partially or completely, or whether it should be denied. So yes. So once the application has come in, he has assessed everything. The next step is the PIO has to see whether any third party interests are involved or not. What is third party and what are its interests? I'll discuss later. But If a third party interest is involved, then he has to issue a notice in writing to a third party stating that I intend such and such information regarding you has been sought under the RTI Act and I intend to disclose it. The third party here, I'll talk about later. Then he has to examine whether the information which is being sought, whether it falls under the exemption category or not. Exemption is permissible under such section 8 and section 9 of the Act, and I'll go through with it in detail later on. He has to access when the information is exempt, whether it is exempt completely or partially. Because if partial information is allowed, then he has to apply a different section and disclose part information. Then this I have already talked about as to who is the holder of the information. Then he has to gather all the information. He has to calculate the further fee. For example, there are 20 pages of information, it becomes 40 rupees. He has to intimate these details of calculation of the further fee to the applicant. And as soon as the applicant deposits 40 rupees, then and only then he is expected to send the information to the applicant. Now, whether any information is being disclosed or denied, in both the cases, the PIO, while responding back, has to give the details of the first appellate authority and has to inform the applicant that he has a right to file appeal against the order passed by the PIO. This is very, very important. Next, he has to decide that the information, whether it is being disclosed completely or in part. He has to intimate the third party, or if he is rejecting any piece of information, then he has to pass a speaking order. What is speaking order? I will discuss later. And very important, as I have mentioned, that he has to intimate the applicant that he has the right to file an appeal, and he has to give the details of the public appellate authority and the time limit during which the first appeal can be filed. This is very important. So I was talking about third party. So who is a third party? Or I would say, what is the information which is called as the third party information? The Act says that any information which relates to or is supplied by a third party is third party information. Now, who can be a third party? Besides the applicant, anybody can be a third party. Even the PIO can be a third party. Even the public authority can be a third party. So whenever there is a situation which arises where information is related to or is supplied by a third party, and if the PIO decides that he intends to disclose, if the PIO decides that the information is exempt under section 8 or 9, then there is no need to give a third party notice. But if the PIO decides that he intends to disclose the information, then he has to give a notice in writing to the third party stating his intention of disclosure of the information, and then the third party is expected to respond to this notice within 10 days. So, and once the response comes from the third party, or if the response doesn't comes within the 10 days of the notice being issued, then the PIO can go ahead and disclose the information. Time limit is very important. PIO should always stick to the time limit. Whether he is disclosing or denying the information is immaterial, but sticking to time limit is very important. Application has to be responded back within 30 days of its receipt, and these 30 days include all the holidays, Saturdays, Sundays, national holidays, everything. 30 days are included during this time limit. If the application comes through APIO, it becomes 35 days. If the information relates to a third party, the time limit is 40 days. And there are certain organizations which are exempt under the RTI Act. A whole list is given in Schedule 2. On these agencies, the RTI Act is not applicable, except in the cases of corruption and human rights violation. So in those cases, those public authorities who are exempted, they get 45 days to respond to the application. In your department, I think it would be the DRI and DGCI. And if any applicant invokes the clause of life and liberty, then the PIO gets only 48 hours to respond back. I mean, if an application comes in on Friday evening and the applicant has invoked a clause of life and liberty, then the PIO has to respond back by Sunday. So you don't have any time. So just be careful while you are going through the application. Whenever the application comes in, immediately open it and immediately see, just go through it whether any such clause has been invoked or not. So I always give this example कि we all are living in family and houses, so uh, the guests are bound to come. So whenever we know the guests are about to come, we do certain preparations, है ना? Like we update our maybe the drawing room, we prepare some snacks and things like that. So since this is a public authority, RTI applications are bound to come in. So when you already know that applications will be filed, so there are prerequisites which you should follow so that dealing with application becomes easier. First and foremost, there should be a proper receipt officer who should know and understand whether any piece of paper which is coming, it is RTI application or not. How will he know? The RTI application will be addressed either to the PIO of the organization or the name of the PIO and written as RTI application. So whenever receipt officer receives any such application, he should immediately give it to the PIO. There should not be any lagging कि receipt officer के पास Monday को आई, Friday तक वो PIO के पास जा रही है. No. As soon as the receipt officer receives it, 30 days का time click होना start हो जाता है. So please be aware of that. Then there should be a proper application tracking mechanism. What happens many a times, one applicant, he keeps on filing repeatedly the applications, and many a times the information being sought is also similar in nature. So it may happen that a PIO loses track of a certain applications. This should not happen because irrespective of whatever is being sought, each application has to be responded. Whether or not you are disclosing the information is secondary, but each application has to be responded. Then there should be proper maintenance of records. Why? So that whenever application comes in, you can easily retrieve the records. Training of officers is very important because until and unless the officers are aware of the provisions of the Act, they will not be able to respond to the application in the spirit of the Act. And proactive disclosure is very important. As I have emphasized, if this takes place, then the load of the PIO will be reduced to a great extent. Coming to proactive disclosure part only, there is a particular section 4 of the Act, which has specified 17 manuals. And these 17 manuals, they have to be proactively disclosed by each and every public authority. It can be through various means. Section 4 specifically says that all records should be duly catalogued and indexed. As far as possible, you should computerize the records, because if the records are computerized, you can access them easily. Third, whenever policies are being formulated, all the facts related to that policy should be published. Any quasi-judicial or administrative decision taken by the public authority, the reasons for the same should be put in public domain. Then there are, there's a big list. I'll just quickly cover some of them. Powers and duties of officers and employees, norms for discharge of its function, the procedure followed in any decision making. कोई भी decision the public authority is taking, why that decision has been taken, what were the reasons, what was the procedure for taking that decision, all of this has to be put in the public domain. Then subsidy programs, the recipients of concessions, any meeting that has taken place, the directory of the officers and employees, the budget. Very importantly, the name and designation of the PIO and first appellate authorities have to be put in the public domain by the public authority. Section 4 says that all this information, that is the 17 manuals which have been specified, they have to be suo motu disclosed to the maximum extent possible. This means you don't have to wait for any RTI application. You have to disclose it before any RTI application comes to you. How this should be put into public domain, the Act has not specified any means. There can be various methods like the pamphlets, maybe notice boards, maybe of register on the reception desk. But easiest most widely accessible form is the website of the organization. And आपने एक बार डाल दिया, that is not enough. You have to update it regularly. Whenever any change happens in the organization, the same has to be updated on the RTI page of the website as well. The Act has not specified as to how the records should be maintained. No, the Act only says that records should be maintained and you can follow any method that your organization is already following to maintain the record. Many times the PIO denies the information stating that the record retention period is over. Every office has its own record retention policy. Maybe say it is 5 years. So any application which seeks information which is older than 5 years, and the PIO many a times they write that the record retention period is over. This is valid only if the records have been destroyed. Whether the record retention period is over or not, if you have that record in your office, you cannot say that record retention period is over. Then PIO at many times they give reasons that the record is not available, a file is missing. This I always say this is not a very healthy response, because previously these things were not taken that seriously, but of lately the Information Commission has taken a very strict stand on such responses. They say that the records were a government property. So whenever we lose something of ours, what do? We file an FIR with the police. The commission has now started saying that if any file or record is not available or is missing, then the public authority is to file an FIR with the police department, and they have to ascertain the responsibility of a person because of whom the record went missing. Please be very careful if you are writing that the record is unavailable or if the file is missing. Please be ready to respond back. Now, if the record retention period is over and the public authority has destroyed the records, then the PIO can write that the records has been destroyed as per the policy of the department. If you are giving this reason, then you have to attach a proof of destruction of record. Whenever you are destructing any records, you must always be taking some pictures or maybe logging it in the file, date-wise, record-wise, whatever. So whatever proof of destruction you have, when you give this reason for denying the information, please attach a proof of destruction with your response. At times they can be seen where the record which is being sought is not maintained by the public authority as per their policy. For example, if somebody files in an RTI application with NACIN asking for a copy of recording of this session that is taking place. Now, if NACIN is not required to make a copy of this or record this session, then they are not bound to give it, because as per policy, they are not required to record this session. So when such a scene happens, the PIO can say that record is not maintained as per policy. Tampering of records is very serious. Never tamper with the records, because this leads to being penalized. The PIO should never ask some details, personal details of the applicants. Who are you? Why do you want this information? What are the reasons of, seeking this information? No, please never, ever ask such things from the applicant. The only thing that the PIO should be concerned about is the name of the applicant, the signature of the applicant, and the address at which the information is to be provided. Besides these, please don't ask for anything else. There are three specific clauses in the Act. That is, the first is public interest. I had discussed it, that public interest overrides the exemption clause under the Act. Second is the corruption and human rights violation with regards to the exempted organization. And third is the life and liberty clause, because under this clause, again, only 48 hours are given. So whenever an applicant is invoking any of these three clauses, he is supposed to give reasons and substantiate his invoking these clauses. Now, applicant is expected to do that. So what the PIO should do, whenever any of these three clauses has been invoked, he should look whether any reason to substantiate has been given or not. Again, he should not, if there are no reasons, please don't go and ask the PIO ki reason, the applicant ki aap reason dijiye ki why public interest is applicable or why life and liberty clause is applicable. Don't do that. Just simply look whether the reasons have been given or not. If the reasons have been given, then deal accordingly. If the reasons have not been given, then you can treat that application as an ordinary RTI application and you can ignore the invocation of these clause. These are certain important issues that I would like to discuss. First is whenever you are responding to RTI application, please keep a proof of dispatch so that you know if the applicant goes to the second level appeal level, that is to the commission or maybe even at higher forums, you can always have proof that I responded to the application and I responded well in time. Second, what happens if I have shown here a small sample of application? What will happen if you receive such an application? Do you understand what is written on that application? I think most of us would not understand what has been written. So the Act has clearly stated that RTI application can be filed in either English, Hindi, or regional official language. So if you are posted in Gujarat, then if an application is coming in is in Gujarati, then whether or not you know Gujarati is your concern, but that is a valid RTI application. Similarly, if you are posted in Maharashtra and the application is coming in Marathi, it is a valid RTI application. But if you're posted in Gujarat and an application has come similar to an example that I have given here, I don't know, it is some language, maybe some South Indian language or whatever, and you don't understand that language, then it is not your duty to call a translator and get it translated. No. This is about the filing of RTI application. What should be the language of reply to such an application? If the application is coming in Gujarati, are you supposed to respond back in Gujarati? No. The PIO has to provide the information as it is held in any of the public office. If the information, the record is in English, just get it photocopied and send it as it is. As far as a forwarding letter is concerned, I always suggest whatever the language that the applicant has used, use that language only. Meaning to say, if there is an English application in English, the forwarding letter should be in English, Hindi in Hindi. If it is in Gujarati, the forwarding letter should be in Gujarati. But the information is only a simple photocopy of the document as it is held by the public office. If the information is already available on the website, the PIO can simply provide a link to that particular page. Don't write it is available on the website, go and take it out yourself. No, please provide the exact link of the exact page. I always recommend use of speed post when an applicant is responding to the RTI applications for two reasons. Number one, it ensures timely delivery, and number two, proof of dispatch is there. The PIO is expected to give reasonable assistance to the applicant. Now, what does reasonable assistance means? If I give you an example, a person comes to you, to the PIO, and says, I don't know how to read and write, but I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things from your office. So now what the PIO has to do? It is the duty of the PIO to reduce in writing whatever a person is saying verbally. He has to write it down on piece of paper, get the applicant's thumb imprint on it, and treat it as a valid RTI application. Similarly, at times there can be a blind person and he wants to file an RTI application. Again, you have to assist the applicant. So you have the role of the PIO is not only to respond to the application, but also give reasonable assistance to the applicants, because this is ultimately a public welfare. This is a little critical thing. What happens when the PIO is changed? All get transferred, all the public government officers, they get transferred time to time. So let me say Mr. X was the PIO when the application was received. And on 23rd day, maybe he gets changed and some other person takes the position of the PIO. Now, whose responsibility is it to respond back to the application? Because ultimately the application has to be responded back within 30 days. Whether you are giving the information or not is secondary, but it has to be responded back within the first 30 days. If you don't respond back, then you can be penalized. So, which PIO holds the responsibility, the earlier PIO or the newly appointed PIO? I would say that both of them have to take the responsibility, because this cannot happen. Ki the earlier PIO, he was just sitting on the application. He knew I would be transferred. He did not take any action. He did not initiate any action transferring the application, collecting. He did nothing. He was just simply sitting on the application. Ki jo naya aaya, he'll deal with it. I'm done with it. You had the earlier PIO, he had 23 days, and the new PIO has only 7 days. So if at all this goes to the level of second appeal, then both of them has to justify their part, what they did in 23 days or in 7 days. And accordingly, the commission will take the view, and if they levy the penalty, accordingly they will levy the penalty to whomever they find is the guilty PIO. So whenever there is a change of PIO, the taking over and handing over should be very clear on paper, so that both the PIOs, they can defend themselves. Responding to each application is very, very important. Again, I will say, whether you are giving the information or you are denying the information, please respond back to each application. The PIO should sign each and every reply. Many times the PIO is a senior officer. So though the actual work is being done by the junior officers, the signature on the response has to be of the PIO only, not the deemed PIO, nor anybody else. Only the PIO is expected to sign the response. So coming to appeals.
Ma'am, would you like to take a break?
Maybe we can take it. Yes, sure. For what,
15 मिनट
10
का ब्रेक
minutes?
ले सकते हैं मैम,
15
whenever
minutes.
you are
Okay, yeah,
comfortable.
yeah,
ऐसा
sure. Yeah, absolutely. We
आपका
can take a break. Yeah.
पॉज हुआ इसलिए मैंने वो फैसिलिटी वो टाइम यूज कर लिया.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Please go ahead. Even the
15 minutes break.
participants need 15 minutes fine with me. It's fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
आप इतने बिजी रहेंगे तो फिर हम क्या करेंगे? तो 12:30 बजे जाना है। तो दिल्ली चल रहा हूँ, कितनी बजे निकलते हैं? हाँ, अच्छा तो माइनर दबो।
Ma'am, we can start if you are ready.
Yes, we can start. So we have talked about the application part. Little part is left, the exemptions part. I will take it up subsequently. Coming to appeals, the Act has an inbuilt mechanism of two levels of appeals. If the applicant is not satisfied by the response given by the PIO, then just a minute, I think the slides have, yes. So if the first level is the RTI application, the second level is the first appeal level. The first appellate authority is a person who is senior to the PIO in the same organization, and the second appeal has to be filed with the Information Commission. In the case of your department, it is Central Information Commission. Coming to first appeal, if the applicant is not satisfied by the response given by the PIO, then he has to file a first appeal with the first appellate authority within 30 days of receipt of the response from the PIO or the deemed refusal. So what is deemed refusal is if the PIO fails to respond back within the 30 days of receipt of application, it is taken as the PIO is refusing to give the information. In that case, the first appeal can be filed by the applicant with the first appellate authority. And the first appellate authority has a time limit of, again, 30 days to respond back to the first appeal. He may extend this period up to 45 days, but if he is extending it, he has to give the reasons for this extension in writing while responding back to the appeal. He can also condone the delay if of filing of first appeal by the applicant if he is satisfied by the reasons given by the applicant. Personal hearing, whether the first appellate authority is supposed to give a personal hearing or not, that is, the Act has not specified it, but if the applicant wishes and if it is not very inconvenient for the first appellate authority, he may give personal hearing, because at times the Information Commission in various orders have stated that you are an adjudicating authority, and adjudicating authorities has to and maybe they should give personal hearing to the applicants. So the first appellate authority is not bound to give personal hearing, but if it is required, depending upon the case, he may entertain the personal hearing. The second appeal has to be filed with the Central Information Commission. There is no time limit specified in the Act for filing of the second appeal, nor there is a time limit for the Information Commission to respond back to the second appeal. Yes, Information Commission always gives personal hearing both to the PIO as well as the applicant. And whenever the PIO is called for such hearing, the PIO should attend this personal hearing, because ultimately he is the one who has to defend himself before the commission, whatever decision he has taken. If the applicant fails to file application within maybe a reasonable time limit, then the Information Commission can accept the delayed filing of RTI application appeal. The role of the Information Commission is twofold. One, they have to hear the appeals and they have to hear the complaints. Appeals and complaints are two different things. Appeal is filed when an applicant wants access to information. Okay, so if the applicant wants whatever he's seeking should be disclosed to him, he is expected to file an appeal with the Information Commission, the second appeal, only when he has exhausted the first two levels. That is, he has filed an application with the PIO, he has filed first appeal in this regard to the first appellate authority, and still if he is dissatisfied, then he can go in filing a second appeal with the Information Commission. The second part is, if the applicant wants, he can file a complaint to the Information Commission. So appeal, second appeal and complaint are two different things under the Act. When this complaint can be filed by the applicant, there are various scenarios where an applicant can file complaint. First, if there is no PIO in any public authority, so he doesn't know to whom to give the RTI application. Second, there is a PIO, but he refuses to take the application. Okay, I will not accept the application then. Thirdly, if the information is not being disclosed, say बोल रहे हम तो नहीं देंगे information without giving any reasons. Fourth, if there is no response from the PIO within the time limit prescribed under the Act, then a complaint can be filed. In this case, he can file both the application appeal as well as the complaint together. If the PIO asks for an unreasonable fee, for example, the information being sought extends up to 10 pages, and the PIO says, please give 40 rupees because I have to send the person to collect the papers from the other branch of the office, and we have to bear the whatever reasons he is giving. So if there is an unreasonable fee being charged by the PIO, the complaint can be filed. If the applicant is not satisfied with the information that has been given by the PIO, according to the PIO, he has given whatever he had in the full spirit of the Act. Still, if the applicant finds that the information is incomplete, it is misleading, intentionally misleading, or some false information has been provided to him, he has the right to file appeal as well as a complaint against the PIO. And any other matter which may relate to the RTI application, the person can go and file a complaint with the Information Commission. But if the applicant is filing a complaint with the Information Commission, then the Commission will not ask the PIO to provide the information. Information can be disclosed only if an appeal is filed. So if the person, he wants to complain against the PIO, and if he wants access to information as well, then the applicant is supposed to file the second appeal as well as the complaint. By filing complaint, he cannot ask for access to information. No. If he wants access to information, he has to file second appeal also. And complaint and second appeal, they can be filed simultaneously, that is together, via two different applications. Information Commission can levy a penalty. They have the powers of penalizing the public information officer, and this may range from rupees 250 per day and can go up to maximum of 25,000. And when this penalty can be levied, if the applicant, the PIO has not received the application, or if he has not provided the information. In both the cases, the Information Commission can penalize the PIO. And this is not the only kind of penalty that can be levied by the Information Commission. The Information Commission has the power to give the head of the public authority directions to give an adverse entry for the PIO in his APAR, or to take some disciplinary action against the PIO. So these two things will be done by the head of the department, but the directions can be given by the Information Commission. And it is the proof of the burden of proof lies entirely on the PIO, because whatever he is expected to know the law and respond back as per the provisions of the law only. So if he fails to fulfill his duties, then he is the one who has to bear the brunt of it. The commission also have the power of compensating the applicant for any loss or detriment that the applicant may have suffered while accessing the information. And this compensation can be either monetary or non-monetary. Monetary may be whatever he has spent on air travel, or whatever fare if he has, or the staying part, if he has availed certain expenditure for access to information, that may be compensated. And there can be non-monetary compensation in form of directions. For example, once an applicant, he was denied admission due to delay in receiving the information in the BHU, Banaras Hindu University. So in that case, the commission, they directed the university to give admission to the student. So there can be monetary or non-monetary compensation depending upon the case. And I would like to here state that compensation is to be paid by the public authority, and the penalty is to be paid by the PIO through his own pocket. So these are two different things, paid in two different ways. There are certain recommendations that the Information Commission can do. Firstly, Section 25 says that each public authority has to submit an annual report to the CIC, and this annual report has to contain various things, out of which the important things are the number of applications coming in, if any disciplinary action has been taken against the PIO or something like that, then the amount of charges collected, that is the further fee that has been collected by the RTI applications. Then the commission can also give, different recommendation as to how to implement the act in a better way or in the spirit of the act. So there are various kind of recommendations that the Information Commission can give to the public authorities with regard to the RTI Act. And with respect to each and every RTI application, CIC is the final authority. There is no authority under the Act senior to the Information Commission. The only thing where the orders of the Information Commission can be challenged is the High Court. Under the RTI Act, Information Commission is the supreme authority. Whatever decision the Information Commission is taking is binding on the public authority as well as on the applicant. If the applicant is dissatisfied, then he has to go to the High Court only. Up till now, I have talked about the various responsibilities of the PIO. What about the protection to the PIO? Yes, the Act has given a certain protection to the PIO. If that says that no legal proceedings will be initiated against the PIO if whatever he has done in good faith. Now, the RTI Act has nowhere defined what is good faith, but the good faith has been defined under the General Clauses Act and the Limitation Act. And as per those, we can say that if the PIO has done whatever he has done with honesty and he has taken due care and attention while taking the decision, then the PIO can be said to have acted in good faith. So if the PIO is able to prove that whatever I have done in good faith, that is, if he is able to prove his honesty and due care and attention that he has taken by responding to the RTI application, then no legal proceedings will be initiated against the PIO. There is a second schedule to the Act. It is an annexure which has given a list of certain agencies which are beyond the purview of the RTI Act. These includes a lot of central intelligence and security agencies like CBI, RAW, then DRI, DGCI, and so on and so forth. So all these agencies which have been listed in Schedule 2, RTI Act is not applicable to these agencies except in the cases pertaining to corruption and human rights violation. Only in these two cases, an applicant can file an RTI application with the excluded agencies. This is a web. Actually, I wanted to take a break here. So just a small introduction to this website that I run. It is called as rtifoundationofindia.com. I would say this is a great resource as far as RTI Act is concerned to everybody. Here we put up cases, fresh cases on a regular interval, and you will find a plethora of information on the site, important judgments of the Information Commission, of the High Court, the Supreme Court. So whenever a PIO is responding back to any application, he wants to authenticate his decision, then he can quote the various authorities with regards to that topic, and you can find all the important decisions on this site. I would say this is a very concise form of, addressing the RTI issues. You will find a lot of information and it is for free. So please go through this website. We also have this Facebook page of RTI Foundation of India. Here also we put up important judgments from time to time. This is a very easy method of, keeping up to date with the recent happenings in the field of RTI. So you may like to go ahead and share it or maybe like it. So coming to very important part of today's discussion, that is the exemptions. Initially, when I had started with the lecture, I said that this act enlists the information which should not be disclosed. Rest all the things are to be disclosed. So what are these things which are non-disclosable under the RTI Act? It has been specified in two sections, Section 8 and Section 9. I always say that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we say that the preamble to any act is the heart and soul of the act. So the preamble of this act itself states that the efficient performance of any public authority should not be disturbed because of at the cost of providing the information. So the preamble says that the revelation of information should not conflict with public interest such as efficient operation of government, optimum use of limited fiscal resources, and preservation of confidentiality of sensitive information. So the preamble itself, though it is a Public Welfare Act, but the preamble itself tends to create a balance between the powers vested in the citizens and the efficient functioning of the government bodies. So there are two sections, Section 8 and Section 9. Section 8.1 has 10 subsections, 8.1a to 8.1j. And each subsection deals with a particular specific piece of information which can be denied under the RTI Act. We'll take them one by one. First is 8.1a. 8.1a says that any information which affects the sovereignty and integrity, security, relation with foreign state, all these things, if they are affected by disclosure of information, then that information should not be disclosed. Meaning to say, if the revelation will affect the security and integrity of our country, that information may not be given. At times, this section can be used by DRI, DGCI. Otherwise, normal functioning of your department, it is a rare section which can be used for non-disclosure. 8.1b says that any information which has been expressly forbidden by a court of law or tribunal or which constitutes contempt of court may not be given. Now, many a times what happens that, as I had stated earlier, that if any case is going on in the court and an application comes in asking information related to that case, the PIU cannot use Section 8.1b just because the matter is sub judice. No, there should be a express direction from the court stating that any information with regard to this case should not be disclosed to any person. If there are specific directions from that court, then 8.1b can be used. Otherwise, just because it is sub judice, 8.1b cannot be used for non-disclosure. Some other section you may apply, but not 8.1b. There are certain privileges with the MPs and MLAs which they enjoy when the parliament is in session. For example, freedom of speech, then there will be no defamation case against them for whatever they are saying during the session within the parliament, and so on and so forth. There are many privileges. So if the disclosure breaches any of these privileges, then the information can be denied. What happens if applicant seeks for a copy of contract from the public authority? Should the copy of contract be disclosed or not? Similarly, the consultancy agreement or the evaluation parameters or the quantum of commission paid. Why am I asking about these contracts, consultancy agreements? Because each of these category, they have a peculiar piece of information which may harm a third party. Because wherever contract and consultancy agreement and such things are concerned, there is always a third party involved. So if you want to deny this, it can be denied under section 8(1)(d). And this section states that the information, if it relates to commercial confidence, the trade secrets, or the intellectual property of a person, then the information may be denied. Now coming back to the last slide. Whenever there is a contract, maybe it could be for a running of canteen or for the vehicles or for maybe the daily wage workers or something else. So whenever any contract is given by a government authority to a private organization or individual, then there would be many trade secrets of the third party enlisted in the contract. Similarly, it goes for the consultancy agreements or the quantum of commission paid. If somebody is employed as a consultant with one public authority, he may be charging something X amount, and the same person, if he is consultant serving as consultant to other public authority, he may be charging amount Y. So if the amount X is disclosed, then the amount Y and so on and so forth may be affected because of this disclosure. So here, an individual's commercial confidence will be breached if this information is disclosed under the RTI Act. So all these things, they can be denied under section 8(1)(d). Section 8(1)(e) states that any information which is available in fiduciary capacity, then the information may be denied. The question is, what is fiduciary relationship? Fiduciary relationship is a relationship of trust between two individuals or an individual and an organization. I'll give you a certain examples here. Advocate, client, doctor, patient. So you can see this list, and I will explain, like, when a person is going to an advocate with regards to a certain case, the client, he gives a certain piece of set of information about himself to the advocate. Now that information is held by the advocate and it is held in a relationship of trust. Here the client is completely trusting the advocate that he will safeguard his information. He will not reveal the information so that it would not prejudicially affect him in any way. And he is completely on the mercy of the advocate. Same goes for the patient and doctor. The income tax returns that we file between the employee and the employer. So here, a particular person is entrusting the other person or organization with his information in a trustworthy manner that the other person or organization will safeguard that information from being disclosed. So all such information which has been held by the public authority in a fiduciary capacity, then that information can be denied under section 8(1)(e). 8(1)(f) bars the disclosure of information which has been received by our government from a foreign government in confidence. So this section mostly doesn't concern you, so I will not go into details. Section 8(1)(g) states that any information, the disclosure of which will endanger the life or physical safety of an individual or which will reveal the source of information may be denied. This section, it is most commonly used by the police, then maybe the DRI, DGCI, even the regular working of in your department. Whenever you are making a certain case against certain SSC, then you can use this section if you don't want to reveal the source of your information. Many a times the department also conducts various examinations, or maybe interview panels are constituted within the department. If somebody asks for the names of the panelists or the names of the people who have checked the answer sheets, then they may be denied using section 81G. 81H states that any information which impedes the process of investigation, apprehension, or prosecution of offenders may be denied. Now, this section, it contains a lot of technical words. Firstly, what is investigation? This investigation is different from the civil and administrative law investigations. It includes all the investigations, any departmental inquiry, any sexual harassment complaint, any other complaint which is being investigated by the department, the income tax investigations. So all these investigations, they also are considered as investigation under the Act. So if any information is sought which is related to the inquiry or investigation which is going on within the department and has not come to its conclusion, if the PIO feels that the disclosure will impede the process of investigation, then he may deny the information. If the investigative procedure is complete and the conclusion has been made, then this section cannot be used, because if the inquiry is complete, then it cannot be impeded. The important part is what is impeded, because only if the disclosure impedes the investigation, then this section can be used. So here I have tried to explain the term impede using different pictures. If you would just like to think for 2 minutes what is impede, just go through these pictures. You can see in the first picture I have shown a man who's passing a few hurdles. So if a person runs, say maybe with a speed of 100 meters per minute, and if these hurdles are placed and his speed is reduced to maybe, you can say, 80 meters per minute, or if you can see there is a vehicle going on an inclined plane. So if the normal speed of the vehicle is 100 kilometers per hour, and when it comes across a hill, the speed reduces to maybe 80 kilometers an hour. So what I am trying to explain through these pictures is, impede does not means obstruction or negative impact on the investigation. No, even if it slows down the process of investigation, it is said to be impeding the investigation. So it does, if the disclosure does not negatively harms, but even if it reduces the the speed of the investigation procedure, section 81H can be used. But mind it, you have to, the PIU will have to give reasons as to how the disclosure will impede the process of investigation. 81I states that the cabinet papers are not to be disclosed under the RTI Act, provided that once the decision has been taken by the Council of Ministers, the reasons for the decision, the materials on the basis of the decision were taken, have to be made public after the decision has been taken. Section 81G states that any information which relates to personal information, which has no relationship to public activity or interest, or which invades the privacy of an individual, may be denied under the RTI Act. So what is personal information? In common parlance, if I say, so any information which one does not like to share about himself with others is his personal information. It can range from various things, right from medical status, financial status, hobbies, etc. and etc. There can be many things which an individual does not want to share with other people. So all such information about an individual is normally termed as personal information. But unfortunately, we do not have any personal privacy law in India, so it becomes a very gray zone as far as deciding whether the particular piece of information is personal or not. So whenever one comes across a situation, the CIC has often, referred to the UK's Data Protection Act, wherein why UK's Data Protection Act? Because there they have listed things which are one's own personal information, and UK's Data Act because we have derived our constitution from UK. So this is where the commission has looked forward to while deciding whether any particular piece of information is personal or not. And in various cases, the CIC has opined that personal information, they have described it in a negatively manner by stating that any information relating to or originating and which has no public interface is one's own personal information. There are various Supreme Court and High Court judgments with regards to this that I will discuss at a later stage. If a person is seeking something about himself, for example, the copy of his own case or the copy of his own show cause notice or something like that, then 81J cannot be used. Because if somebody is asking about one's own self, the PAO cannot say that it is your personal information. No. When we talk of right to privacy, this is a very gray area. Why? Because what is privacy for one individual may not be privacy for another. If we talk about different times, maybe in ancient times, there were certain different norms for privacy which have changed gradually with time, and today they are different norms. If we talk about different countries, again, the privacy norms are different. If we talk about India itself, then privacy norms, they differ from rural to urban areas, individual to individual. So it is this concept of privacy is very dynamic, and since we do not have any personal privacy law as of now in our country, this becomes a very gray area. But the concept of privacy is not new. In various judgments, the Supreme Court and the High Courts, they have opined that privacy is inherent to our fundamental rights. It is a part of fundamental right, that is the right of freedom of speech and expression and life and liberty. It is inherent in these two rights. So they often consider as right to privacy as a fundamental right. And since these two rights, they have subject to reasonable restrictions, thus the right to privacy is also subject to reasonable restrictions. Of lately, certain things have been described as personal and private to an individual under the IT Act, which was laid down in 2000, wherein things like one's own password, then financial information, sexual orientation, mental conditions, physical health, medical records, biometrics. So these all, they have been listed under the IT Act as being private, as sensitive information. So you may look to this act if whenever you come across a situation where you cannot decide whether it is personal or not, you may look forward to this list also. How personal are these? ACR, APR, yes, it's one's own personal information. The person himself can ask for it, but not a third party. Transfer and postings, they are completely official. IPRs is a gray area. State government officers, they are expected to reveal the IPRs on the website of the organization, but I would say it's still a gray area, because just because you are, in my opinion, I mean, the act is gray about it, but in my opinion, just because you are a public servant does not mean you have to show everything about yourself to the public. Nobody has fought it up till now, but I find it that if a person he can fight for it. Promotions, absolutely official. TAD, LTC claims, this is again a gray area. I would say whenever a copy of these is asked, the amount may be disclosed. However, the forms may not be. Why? Because the amount, yes, it is government money, so where it is being spent should be revealed. But all these things, they have more information besides the amount. Like if we talk about LTC claims, then where the person has gone, with whom the person has gone, this is all his personal information which has no relation to any public activity. So if somebody asks for a copy of this, don't give the copy, just give the amount which was claimed by the person. Pay and pensions, they are official, nothing personal about it. Service book is again like TAD, LTC claims, because service book contains a lot of information, which may be part of which may be personal and part of which may be official. So then again, you have to decide on the basis of the particular information which is being sought, or you may provide part information. Whatever you find is personal, just omit that part, and official part you may provide the copy of. There is a proviso to section 8.1 which says that if the information cannot be denied to Parliament, will not be denied to any person. So that also means that if the information is being given to person, may not necessarily be given to an MP. So that makes an individual citizen more powerful than MP or MLA. And iska ek example, it was a person, he asked for PMO fund expenditure. In the Parliament, the MP was denied, but when it was filed through RTI application, the person was provided with the said information. So it makes an individual citizen more powerful than MP or MLA. So here I have talked about 10 subsections of section 8.1A to J. So whenever any information is being sought, please take that information and pass it through all the subsections, whether it affects the security, whether there is express directions from the court, if it breaches the parliamentary privileges. But go through each section and see whether any section is applicable to that piece of information or not. If yes, apply that section and deny the information. If not, then you cannot deny it. Coming to section 9, this section states that any information which relates to a copyright which is subsisting in a person other than state should not be disclosed. This includes all the publications by an individual, any book or notebook or whatever. If a person has published it in its individual capacity, that cannot be given under the RTI Act by any public office. Section 8.2 states that any information which is barred under the RTI Act, but if its disclosure is in public interest, then the exemption sections are no longer applicable. For example, if an applicant is putting in an application and he states that the information is normally maybe barred, but its disclosure is in public interest, and he gives reason for it, why it is in public interest, then the exemption sections no longer become applicable. Like the PIO cannot say कि ये personal information है 8.1J में I am not giving, it is held in fiduciary capacity, I am not giving in 8.1E. No. All these exemption sections, they cease to exist if the disclosure is in public interest. Now it is important that the PIO should understand that the disclosure should be in public interest. Now what is public interest has not been defined, and it is not governed by number of people or percentage of people. Matlab, we cannot say कि अगर 50 लोग are being affected, then it is in public interest, or 50% of people are affected, then it is in public interest. No, it can be that only 1% of population is being affected by it. Still, the disclosure is in public interest, and vice versa. Please understand the difference between of interest to the public and in the interest of the public. आज IPL में कितने रन बने, करीना कपूर के बेटे का नाम क्या है, this can be of interest to the public but not necessarily in interest of the public. So only when the revelation is in the interest of the public, then the exemption sections are no longer applicable. There can be different scenes and situations where what is in the public interest of a particular section of society may be against the public interest of the different section of the society. There can be certain conflicting situations. Here again, the PIO has to decide, outweigh all the things, and then decide whether it should be disclosed or not. Public interest and private interests, yes, they can be contrary. If the revelation is against one's individual interest, it may be in the interest of the public. Just to give you an example, there can be times, suppose, for example, an application, applicant files an application with the government hospital asking about the illness of a individual A. Now, whatever individual A is suffering from is his personal information in ordinary circumstances, but the applicant says, "Ki, no, I have serious doubt that he is suffering from plague, maybe." So if he does not reveal that information, then he may affect a large amount of other people who may also, contact plague. So it becomes in public interest to know that whether he is suffering from certain communicative disease or not. So here, an individual's personal interest is outweighed by the public interest. So there can be different scenarios. If the information is older than 20 years, then no exemption section is applicable besides section A, 81A, C and I. That is the security of India, the parliamentary privileges and the cabinet papers. So if a person is asking for any information which is 20 years older, then the PIO cannot say that it is held in fiduciary capacity, the process is under investigation, it is somebody's personal information. No. The only three sections which can be used to deny are 81A, C and I. If you will just give me 1 minute and just go through this slide.
Ma'am, hello.
Yes. So what happens many a times, the applicants, they are very intelligent, they are very well versed with the act, and they find that whatever information they are seeking, it will amount to maybe 50,000 number of pages, maybe 20,000 number of pages. So 50,000 into 2 means 1 lakh, 20,000 into 2 means 40,000. So he knows who's going to pay so much of further fee. So he very intelligently, he may ask for the information in the CD because he knows the CD will cost him only 50 rupees. So the PIO, the organizations, they may come across various situations where the information is being sought in a particular format. Now, if the records have been computerized, the same demand can be met by the organization. But if the records have been not computerized, they are available only in the hard copy, then the PIO is not supposed to get it converted to into the electronic format and then provide the CD. And same goes for vice versa also. There can be certain things which are only in soft copy and he wants in hard copy. So whenever there is a situation where the PIO wants to change the format of providing the information, then he can use section 7(9). And this section states that the form of providing the information can be changed if it causes disproportionate diversion of resources of the public authority. Mind you, section 7(9) cannot be used for denial. Only section 8 or section 9 can be used for denial. Section 7(9) can be used if the PIO wants to change the format of providing the information. Can part information be provided under the RTI Act? Yes. As I had stated earlier, like it can be a copy of service book or maybe some other regular document, And if the PIO finds that, okay, whatever is being sought is in one page, but half of that page contains information which is under investigation and under 81H cannot be given. So, or if he finds that the total information extends to 10 pages, but out of those 10 pages, 2 pages are somebody's personal information and cannot be given, but 8 pages can be given. So whenever he comes across such situation where part information can be given, but part is barred from disclosure, then the PIO can use section 10(1), that is the severability section, and can provide part information. He has to state that under section 10(1) he is providing only part information, because the part information which is not being provided is barred for disclosure under particular subsection of section 8 or 9. So he has to use both sections, section 10(1) and any of the sections of subsections of section 8. I had talked about the life and liberty clause because it gives merely 48 hours to respond back to the PIO. The term life and liberty has not been described in the RTI Act, but if we talk about strictly in biological terms, life is something between the birth and death of a person, and liberty means living life, not in a caged manner, but actually living life in a with freedom. So whenever life and liberty clause is invoked, the person has to give reasons why this clause has been invoked. I'll give you an example. There can be certain times, for example, if the applicant, one of his relatives was denied bed. If I talk about Corona times, yes, he may have been denied bed, but now he knows that if he is not provided with the bed, the person may die. So he files an RTI application with the government hospital, asking them to give the number of beds in the hospital, number of beds occupied in the hospital, number of free beds in the hospital, and so on and so forth. He may ask for this information, invoking life and liberty clause. So yes, the PIO will assess, and if he finds yes, life and liberty of a person is at stake, if this information is not disclosed, then he may take into account this clause. But again, here the reason has to be given by the applicant. If there are reasons to support the invocation of this clause, deal with it as a life and liberty relating RTI application. If there are no reasons, then deal with it in the manner of an ordinary RTI application. There is no sample format of responding to an application given in the RTI Act, but I have created this sample format just for the ease of the PIOs. Most of the things you know. The important part is point number 6, that is the order part. Whenever the PIO is responding back, he should clearly state whether the information is being given or not. Point number 1. Point number 2, whether the information which is being disclosed is full or in only part. Third, he should give the sections. He should quote the sections under which the information is being denied. Don't say under section 8 or section 8(1) the information is being denied. No. If you are denying it on the grounds of being personal information, quote section 8(1)(j). Or if you are denying it because it would impede the investigation, state section 8(1)(h). So quote the complete section properly as to under which the information is being denied, and just quoting the section is not enough. The PIO has to explain as to how this particular subsection will be applicable to that particular piece of information for denial. Please give the details of the first appellate authority and the time limit within which the first appeal is to be filed, and please sign the response yourself. This I have included because there is many a times in my various lectures, I have come across various queries जिसमें the people keep on asking कि there is a person who keeps on filing repeated applications on the same topic. He keeps filing application. He's asking the same queries no matter I have revealed the complete information and so on. So there are certain people, who keep on repeatedly filing applications, who are, I have termed this I have used this term, that is chronic information seeker. I have coined it myself. You will not find it anywhere else. So chronic information seekers, according to me, are the people who, they are, if I can say, maybe addicted to, or they are in the habit of filing repeatedly the RTI applications. So whenever an application comes from such an applicant, the PIO should keep a few things in mind, which will really help him while dealing with such people and while dealing with such applications. First and foremost, never get irritated. As soon as you get irritated, you are bound to make some or the other mistake. Then it is a great possibility that the applicant has done his homework very well. He knows the act inside out. He knows what grounds will PIO use to deny the information, or where he can catch the PIO on a softer point and things like that. So since he has done his homework, you also do your homework. Please know the law. That is the only homework you have to do. If you know the provisions of the law, then you can respond to the application in the spirit of the law. Don't get prejudiced by the person. No, like, अच्छा ये तो Mr. Sharma की application है, अरे he is a very genuine person, चलो चलो दे दो. Yeah, Mr. Sharma, oh my God, he is such a bad person. I will not respond to his application, no matter whatever he is asking. No, please, don't be prejudiced by the applicant. Never. Just follow the provisions of the law, and that is all that is required to be done on the part of the PIO. Your decision should be technically and legally sustainable. आप जो भी डिसीजन ले रहे हैं, प्रॉपर लीगल ग्राउंड्स पे लीजिए, कोट कीजिए, जो भी सेक्शन यूज कर रहे हैं, रीजंस दीजिए, सो दैट your decision is not likely to be challenged. Even if it is challenged, you can defend it. Very important for all such applications, strictly adhere to the time limit. Even if you have given the full information, but you have given it on 31st day, the person, he will not talk about the information. He'll say there was a delay of 1 day, so penalize him for 250 rupees. So please be careful, always adhere to the time limits. Then there can be applications, pertaining to same subject. Maybe 10 applications, 11 applications, 15 applications. So if you do not have a proper application tracking mechanism, Mr. Sharma ki aaye ja rahi hai, Mr. Khanna ki aaye ja rahi hai, so you may tend to, overlook one of the applications. It may be displaced, it may not be responded in time. So this should not happen. Please have a proper application tracking mechanism. If you have certain doubt with regards to what the applicant is seeking, it is not clear from the application, you may consider to informally discuss the things with the applicant over telephone, or if he comes to the office and is willing to discuss it, you can talk to him and ask him, please be specific. Whatever you are asking, we want to help you, we want to provide the information, but we cannot help you unless we are clear with what you are asking for. Then there can be times where the information sought is voluminous. When such a situation comes, if you are not able to gather all the information within the 30 days limit, then respond back to the applicant and inform him that what you are seeking is huge and voluminous. We are trying to gather all the information, and we are trying to provide it within the time limits, but it may exceed the time limits. So please bear with us. If you include the application, hello?
Ma'am, there are questions in the chat. Would you take it right now, or?
Can we, till what time do we have time with us?
It is up to you, ma'am. 1:15 तक तो normal scheduled होता है.
So maybe just I'll see. I'll skip the misuse. I'll discuss a few these judgments, and then I'll take up the question answers. Because these judgments will further clarify certain doubts.
Ma'am, if you got content, if you want to go beyond 1:15 also, it's absolutely fine. The platform will not have any problems.
So I'll quickly cover this part.
Fine. Please, ma'am.
Yeah. So coming to, yes, so if it is voluminous, then just inform him that you intend to disclose it, or you are trying to disclose it within the time limit, but it may exceed it. So what can be the result of such applications? There might be a specific target in the mind of a person कि मेरी pension नहीं मिल रही है, जब तक मुझे pension नहीं मिलेगी, I'll keep on filing the application. So as soon as he gets his pension, he has achieved his target and the applications will stop coming in. At times there are, crusaders who want to reform the society. So they'll keep on filing applications no matter what. Today on a particular subject A, tomorrow on a particular subject B and particular subject C and so on. They will never stop filing an application. And for such crusaders, I always advise if you can give the information, give it, because it is not garbed in the personal benefit. They are actually and genuinely helping the society. So go ahead and do your part in it. Thirdly, they can be people who just give it a garb of, public welfare. And actually, they are seeking the information for their own personal benefit. So again, as long as the benefit has been achieved, then only the applications will stop. The best way to deal with such applicants and such applications is an open attitude combined with a proper understanding of the RTI Act, because whatever decision you are taking, if that is legally substantiated by the provisions of the law, then nobody can challenge your decision and you can defend it. This is again very important because there are, I always say, two sides of the coin. Where this is a Public Welfare Act, there is always a tendency of it being misused. So how rather I would say people tend to misuse it. First, and very commonly known, is to know the secrets of the competitors, copy of contracts, copy of commission paid and all. They want to know the secrets of the competitors, and the filing of RTI application is the easiest way to find it. Then sometimes the people want to harass the public authority or a particular individual. They target an individual because they have some personal thing going on against him. Then they misuse the act. Of lately, researches के लिए PhDs for all these things also, there have been a lot of use of this RTI Act just to gain information. Now people, like, they think with internet they can do PhDs, they think with RTI also they can do PhDs sitting just at home. So yes, this is one of the reasons why the act is being misused. Sometimes for spying activities also. And what are the various ways in which the act is misused? Repeated filing of applications, using of abusive language, filing applications by pseudonymous names, then filing repeated applications on a single issue again and again and again, seeking voluminous information, then using the BPL status. Then they know it is the information is in the 10 different maybe commissionerates. एक chief commissioner के पास file कर दूं and I'll get access to everything. Then often misleading the commission when they file the second appeal. So on. So there can be various ways of misuse of the RTI Act. I would suggest, yes, there is misuse, but there is also a great use of this act. So whenever this application is coming into you, please don't be prejudiced by any such thing. Just go strictly by the law. So now I'll take up a few cases, important judgments by the High Court and the Supreme Court, which you can use to quote whenever you are denying the information. Then you can substantiate your decision by quoting these cases. In this first case, the High Court here, Bombay High Court, they said that the PIO is not there to give answers to questions of why, because he is not there to justify a particular thing, why the decision was taken, why the decision was not taken, because taking decision is and giving the justifications for the same is the role of the adjudicating authorities, not the PIO. If the PIO does not have anything in writing regarding that, then he is not supposed to give answers to such questions. In this case, a person, he asked for the bank transaction statements of a welfare association, and the PIO denied it under section 8(1)(e) and J, that is fiduciary capacity and the personal information. And the Central Information Commission, they upheld the decision, stating that though it is a welfare organization, still the bank transaction statements are its own personal information and they are held by the bank in the fiduciary capacity. In this case, the applicant, he wanted various details of an individual employee, like the date of his joining, his promotion, then his transfers, and many other such details regarding about a single government employee. the information was denied using section 81J of the RTI Act, that is stating that information is one's own personal. So we can say the date of joining, the promotion date, the joining of the various branches by him, his transfer letters, all such things, they are employees' personal information which has no relation to any public activity. Okay, so this is a very important judgment, the Subhash Chandra Agarwal case. Here, the person, he wanted a plethora of information ranging right from personal records to professional records, medical records, and many things about the different employees, government employees. So the Supreme Court here stated that personal information, the personal records such as name, address, physical status, mental status, the mark sheets, the answer sheets, then the professional records such as APRs, evaluation reports, disciplinary proceedings, medical records of an individual, financial records of an individual, they are all one's personal information, and a person is entitled to protect this information from being disclosed. So these are all personal information denied under section 81J. The personal records, the professional records, the medical records, and the financial records. The Supreme Court also went to the extent stating that this is only an indicative list. This is not an exhaustive list. So all these things are personal, but there can be more things beyond these things which tend to be personal. In this case, the public authority, the Delhi High Court said that whenever a section is being used to deny an information, it is the responsibility of the PIO to show as to how that particular subsection will be applicable to that particular piece of information. In this particular case, the PIO had used section 81H stating that the matter is under investigation. So the Delhi High Court said that please show as to how the information, if revealed, will impede the process of prosecution. The High Court said that the word used in section 81H is would, and would means that it should be construed strictly. The PIO has to be certain that a disclosure will impede the process of investigation. His mere apprehension is not sufficient enough. Then, yes, this is another very important landmark judgment of the Supreme Court. Here, many of the high courts, what have they done? They said that section 8, that is the exemption section, is an exception to section 3 of the Act, because the main section of this Act is empowering the citizens. Section 3 says that any citizen of India can file an RTI application if he wants to seek information from any of the public authorities. So RTI Act is about revelation of information, and section 8 is only an exception to section 3, so it should be construed strictly and narrowly. But the Supreme Court said no. Section 8 is not an exception to section 3. The Act itself, if we see the preamble also, the Act tends to create a balance between two conflicting interests, because section 3 talks about disclosure of information and section 8 talks about exemption to disclosure of information. So the Act, one section is not exception to the other, but the Act has tried to create a balance between two conflicting interests here. They further clarified in the same judgment, the Supreme Court went steps ahead and clarified a lot of things with regards to the RTI Act. The court said that any information which is available and existing can be provided, but this information is also subject to the exemption sections, that is section 8 and section 9. The role of the PIO is not to collect and collate the information. Whatever is readily available can be provided. He is not supposed to create anything for the sake of providing it. The PIO is not there to draw inferences or assumptions on certain policies or rules or decisions. No, that is not the job of the PIO. Advice and opinions, as far as they are in writing, they are information. Otherwise, they are beyond the purview of the definition of information as specified in Section 2F. The Supreme Court here also commented on the misuse of the Act. They said that everything and anything is not to be expected to be disclosed under the RTI Act. They said that providing of information should not be counterproductive to the efficient functioning of the government offices. This act should be used as a tool to access to information and not as a tool to harass the public authorities or the public servants. No, the court said that because of this act, 75% of 75% public authorities should not be employed or deployed just to provide the information. No, each and every public authority has a role to play. For example, if it is an income tax department, the role of income tax department is to collect the income tax. Its role is not to provide information under RTI Act. This is an additional responsibility which has been thrust upon the public offices. So, just for the sake of implementing the RTI Act and just for the sake of giving the information, the normal functioning of the public authority should not be disturbed. That is not the essence of the RTI Act. So this Subhash Chandra Agarwal case and Aditya Bandyopadhyay case, these very important cases which you can quote if you are denying the information under the RTI Act. This is another very landmark judgment and it has clarified a lot of things. Here the petitioner, he sought for copies of memos, show cause notices and other punishments which were awarded to a particular government servant. Then he also wanted his various financial records from the movable and immovable property details, bank transactions, etc., etc. Then his certain personal things also, like the gifts that he has received from family members, his ITR. So basically, here the applicant, he targeted an individual government officer and he wanted a plethora of information with regards to that person. The Supreme Court said that all these information which is being sought qualifies to be personal information, section 81J, because all these things, they are part of information which is a matter between the employee and the employer, and it has no relation to the public activity or public interest. So mind you, the show cause notices, the punishments awarded, the immovable and movable properties, submissions, the bank transactions, all these things were considered to be personal information by the Supreme Court in this case. So if you want to deny all the matters relating to such things, please quote this decision. So I would say that I have, armed you with a lot of information with regards to the RTI Act. I think I've covered a lot of nuances, little details of all the provisions of the RTI Act. So if you have any queries with regard to anything, I would not like to take up those. Hello. Mr. Reggie, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Do we take questions?
Oh, yes, please.
What is the maximum penalties prescribed on the PIO? Any case where such penalty is imposed and upheld at the appeal forums?
The penalty can be, first and foremost, it can be levied only by the Information Commission. And it can range from ₹250 per day, and it can go up to maximum of 25,000. This is a monetary penalty, the limits of monetary penalty. And besides non-monetary penalties के terms में, the Information Commission, they can direct the head of the department of the to give an adverse entry in the APR of a particular PIO or to take a disciplinary action. These two things will be done by the department head, not by the Information Commission, but the Information Commission can give directions for the same.
Ma'am, in case of a file which is not available, so why should it be only on the PIO? Shouldn't it be on the department to decide whom it should go to?
It is on the department, because in such cases, what the commission has given directions and different judgments is that since the file was a public property, So it is the responsibility of the department. The head of the department is supposed to, many a times they had given direction that please conduct an inquiry. The inquiry is to be conducted by the department head, and the responsibility is to be assured of a particular individual because of whom the file went missing or the record is unavailable. So yes, it is the responsibility of the department. It is not the responsibility of the PIO. The responsibility of the PIO is that whenever he is giving such a reply, then he should be sure, number one, the records are not available. He should not just state कि because नहीं देना है तो मैं लिख दूँ कि record is not available. No. If actually the record is not available, there can be various reasons for record not being available. अगर वो maintain होना था by the department policy, and if it is not being maintained, then again somebody has to bear the responsibility as to why it is not being maintained. Yeah, it was there, but it has been misplaced by somebody. So again, the department has to take up the onus and fix the responsibility of a person because of whom the file went missing. So it is a responsibility of the organization, not a responsibility of a PIO. But whenever PIO is stating that, he should be sure that the records do not exist.
Means in case the a penalty is imposed, means though it is imposed on the PIO, that should actually go to the person who is responsible.
It depends. If, see, the penalty will not be levied because the records have been missing. Point number one. Because only the PIO was not able to give the information because the record was not available, then PIO can always take a stand कि it was not my responsibility to, to upkeep the records. They were not under my jurisdiction. I was not the holder of those records. So whosoever was the holder of records will be the person responsible. And if the PIO is able to prove that this non-existing of record is not because of me, but because of Mr. X, then maybe Mr. X may be penalized, or the commission may give directions to the head of the authority to take certain action against Mr. X.
Because in most of the cases, like in our department, the PIO is only a nodal person.
Right.
It will be from different sections or ranges or offices where he'll be providing the information from.
Correct.
So in these cases, it has to percolate down to the person who is actually responsible.
Yes. So that is why I had taken up the transfer of application part, that is the deemed PIO. The deemed PIO shares the responsibility with the PIO equally. Ultimately, the PIO will decide whether the information is to be disclosed or not. But rest of the things, they lie upon the deemed PIO, because actually the holder of information is the deemed PIO. That is the person who's holding the records, who will collect the information, who will collect the number of pages, whatever, he will give it to the PIO. Here the deemed PIO also informed the PIO whether it should be disclosed or not, giving his reasons. But disclosure and non-disclosure, the decision has to be taken by the PIO, not the deemed PIO. Because the PIO is supposed to know the law, the RTI Act.
Is there any restrictions on writ petitions against in case of RTI cases? Means, are there any particular cases where writ petitions are not maintainable or?
No. If somebody is not satisfied with the response of the Central Information Commission or the State Information Commission, then they can go for writ petition. If they want that, they think, if the applicant thinks that the information which has been given, despite the orders of the Information Commission, is incomplete or it is misleading or it is false, then if he is dissatisfied, he can go to the High Court, and there is no limitation to it.
But my question is, writ is usually filed in only specific cases, like violation of fundamental rights or something of that sort. So it has to be relatable to that, no? In just any case, can a writ be filed?
Any case, RTI, with regards to RTI, any case writ petition can be filed.
Means RTI per se is a case for writ petition.
Yes, because ultimately under the RTI Act, commission is the supreme authority. So if a person is dissatisfied by the orders of the supreme authority, then he has to have a certain way out for it, to deal with it. So that is, the way out is only writ petition. And with regards to anything related to RTI Act, the person can file a writ petition, irrespective of what is the topic of RTI application.
The High Court is High Court is not a natural appellant against the commissioner.
No, the natural
Only
appeal.
two areas.
The Act has only two levels of appeal. First is the First Appellate Authority. Second is the Information Commission. If the person is dissatisfied by Information Commission, then he has to file a writ petition, because under the Act, that is the supreme authority. No appeals can be filed beyond Information Commission.
Could it mean that means with the list of cases which can be considered under writ, even RTI is also one of the cases independently?
Yes, because
Okay.
for as far as RTI is concerned, the only way out remains is writ petition. The person has no other way at all.
Okay, fine. To what extent can file notings be disclosed in a RTA?
See, it depends upon, as I have earlier also I have said, whenever any information is being sought, you just take that piece of information and one by one go through all the subsections of 8.1, like whether it will affect the integrity of India, whether it is expressly forbidden by the court, whether it will breach the parliamentary privileges, whether it will affect the commercial confidence, whether it is held in fiduciary capacity, so whether it is personal, whether it affects the investigation. So take that file noting and go through all the subsections. अगर आपको लगता है कि whatever the file noting is, it is held in fiduciary capacity, then go ahead and deny it under section 8.1. Give the reasons and deny. If you do not find if it is fitting in any of the 10 subsections, then you have no other way but to give it. So you cannot say that this topic you can give, this topic you cannot give. You have to go each piece by piece information.
Ma'am, our offices have shifted to the E format. Means now we got an E office. Does it anyway change the provisions? Is it anyway affecting the information which is to be provided under the Information Act?
Not generally. I would say rather it will help your office because it will be easier to access the records. And
Files are always available. It is available with everybody.
now you cannot say the record is not available if it is existing. And secondly, you cannot say it is untraceable because if it is there in soft copy somewhere or the other.
Welcome. Ma'am, in the last few years, there is supposed to be some changes in the RTI. Means, is there any sort of dilution that has happened? Anything specific?
Not exactly dilution, I would say. A few of the changes have been made with regards to the fee structure, but that is for the state government. So for your department, I don't think it will directly concern you. And one major change is the information commissioners, they were appointed for 5 years earlier. Now they are being appointed for 3 years. And the end consumers are not impacted directly by any of these changes.
And is there any organization or anybody who's been put out of the ambit of the RTI? ऐसा कुछ है?
Last, the CBI was excluded, as far as I know. Most recently, the CBI was excluded because earlier it was under the purview of the Act, and later on it was removed. So that was the only organization that I know about, which has been excluded later on.
Ma'am, a very typical question. Can my department ask for information from, say, income tax under the RTI?
See, department cannot ask. The RTI Act very strictly says that any citizen of India can ask for information. So an individual from your department can ask for information, but if you say that customs wants to ask from income tax or GST wants to ask from income tax, that is not permissible.
Means, let us say customs, suppose I as a superintendent of a range, can I ask or do I have to ask only on my individual basis, as an individual?
You as superintendent of range cannot ask, but you as Mr. Reggie can ask.
Fine. Any more questions? Do we have any more questions from the participants? I guess, ma'am, that's it. All from the question side. If there is any parting remarks you would like to make.
Yeah, just one thing. If I hope this session would be very helpful for you to, whenever you are dealing with the applications. And if you have any further queries, you can contact me. I think Mr. Reggie has my email address.
Yes,
and you can also contact me through my website. Here it has this.
Yes, RTI Foundation.
Kind of a thing. Contact us. You can contact me through that also. I would be very happy to help you in future as well.
Thank you so much. Actually, there are lots of things, small things which we would not realize when we when we go through the RTI, because again it becomes one of our postings which we hold a post there. So it was actually very useful to have a wholesome view of the whole act and the specific provisions. Sir, there is a question. Can any person ask for another person's audit report?
Another person's what?
Audit report means, can an X company ask for an audit report of Y company?
See, I would say again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. If somebody is asking you for the audit report of a third party, that is the other company, then it might affect its commercial confidence because it would have many details which that company would not like to disclose. So first and foremost, if that you are intending to disclose it, then you have to serve a third party notice to that company whose audit report you are talking about. Okay, but that company does not have a veto whether it should be disclosed or not. Ultimately, the PIO will decide if it has to be disclosed or not. If the PIO decides that no, this audit report, if revealed, it will affect the company's commercial confidence, or if it is held by the department in fiduciary capacity, then he may deny it. Otherwise, not.
As it is a third party, wouldn't it always be safer as a department to ask for the permission from the third party before we disseminate the information?
Yes, if you want to disseminate, you have to ask the third party.
Exactly.
Whether you consider the reasons given by the third party or not, it's the third party will not decide whether it should be disclosed or not. Ultimately, the PIO will decide, but if the PIO intends to disclose, he should give the third party a chance to defend their information. Because the third party has a right to defend its own information, whether they want it to be disclosed or not, they will give you the reasons in writing. If the PIO finds that the reasons given by the third party are genuine reasons and the information should not be disclosed, these reasons should fit the exemption categories specified under the RTI Act only.
Ma'am, but for a company, it is always a issue if their audit points are being discussed in public. So is there any reason that means under what circumstances would a third party information be given in spite of an objection from the third party? ऐसा हो सकता है?
हाँ, ऐसा हो सकता है ना, अगर वो information, if it does not falls under any of the exemption categories, then the PIO can go ahead and give it. PIO can deny only what has been specified to be denied under the RTI Act. अगर 8(1)(a) के 10 subsections में fall नहीं करती वो particular piece of information, the PIO cannot deny it. अगर fall करती है तो PIO can deny it.
I suppose that will be all. Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure I'll share a video also, I suppose, क्योंकि क्या है, बहुत से information will not stay available always. So this will be a क्या बोलते हैं reference for all of us.
Yes, definitely. I've tried to, make my presentation very consumer friendly kind of a thing. Pointers I have given, which makes it easier to understand the act. So if you will share it with the participants, of course, it can stay with them and they can refer to it.
Would you be able to share us the presentation, ma'am? आप presentation share कर सकते हो?
You have the video, so you give them the video, na? It contains my presentation and it contains my voiceover also. So if they don't understand certain things with my voiceover, they'll understand.
Absolutely. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Hope to see you again some other day also.
Thank you so much. I also had a great time. I mean, I would have loved an offline thing, but these days only online thing is what is permissible.
नहीं ma'am, what we realized is, ठीक है, classroom training का अपना एक अलग view है, अलग requirement है, but we would never means having you with us on a classroom training would not have been very easy in Vadodara.
Right.
And means we have got people for a customs course. We had a course person joining from Chennai, one from Bombay, one from Mumbai, and one from Amritsar. So yes, possible ही नहीं है. We would never have access to so much of resources.
That's
and second advantage is today we have got people joining in from Shillong, from Chennai, from Bangalore, Delhi. So again, this also would not be practically possible for anybody.
Yes,
So
yes.
Means classroom trainings are now here to stay, ma'am. There is definitely a very beautiful place where we can have. Ma'am, we have classes जहाँ पे हमने 850 लोगों को train किया है. जो classroom में मुझे कितने साल लग जाते हैं, I don't know.
Right.
So, and we can have a class lecture for 10 people. We can have a class for 100 people. We can have it for half an hour. We can have it for 200 hours.
Right. Absolutely right.
This is really very huge, ma'am.
Yes. It has made things much easier and much accessible, I would say.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, just I just wanted to take one more screenshot. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
With this, we are coming to the end of the session, and I thank all the participants who joined in. Thank you so much.